After my wife died, everything in our house felt broken, but nothing shattered me more than the way my own daughter looked at me. Mira was 16, full of fire and grief, and she couldn't stand to be around me. She slammed doors when I tried to talk. She glared at me like I was the enemy. She didn't just avoid me, she hated me. One night, while packing away some of her things, I found a dusty box shoved under her bed. It was heavy, covered in old tape residue, and inside were a dozen cassette tapes neatly stacked in rows. At first, I thought it was just some music collection she picked up from a thrift store, maybe something she didn't want me to see. But when I slid the first tape into the player and pressed play, I didn't hear music. I heard my wife's voice. It was Leora, clear, steady, as if she had never left, and her first words stopped my heart cold. She said, "If you're listening, there's something you need to know." I froze. Her tone wasn't casual. It wasn't playful. It was the voice of a woman carrying a secret she hadn't told anyone, not even me. And she said this message wasn't for me at all. It was meant for Mira. In that moment, I knew whatever truth was on those tapes had the power to change everything. What my wife revealed wasn't just a secret. It was something that could destroy my daughter's entire life. When Leora passed away, the world lost its color. Our house, once filled with laughter and music, became a hollow shell where grief echoed through every room. The mornings were the worst. I used to wake up to the sound of her humming in the kitchen or the clatter of pans as she made breakfast for Mira before school. Now, silence weighed down the walls like a heavy blanket. I lay in bed every morning, staring at the ceiling, knowing I had to get up, but dreading the emptiness that waited for me downstairs. Mira changed overnight. She had always been close to her mother. They shared secrets, whispered in the kitchen while they baked cookies, stayed up late watching movies with bowls of popcorn balanced on their laps. I was part of those moments sometimes, but it was clear that the strongest bond was between mother and daughter. When Leora died, Mira didn't just lose her mom, she lost her best friend, and in her eyes I became the villain who hadn't saved her. I tried to be patient, to give her space, but the distance between us grew wider each day. She would stomp past me in the hallway without a word. At dinner, she barely picked at her food, eyes glued to her phone, her body angled away from me as if I was a stranger. If I asked her how her day was, she would snap, "Fine," in a tone that cut like glass. If I tried to remind her about chores, she exploded, "You're not Mom. Stop pretending you care." Those words burned. I wanted to scream back that I did care, that I loved her more than my own life, that losing Leora had gutted me too. But I swallowed my anger because I knew it wasn't anger she needed to see. It was patience. Still, patience was hard when every glance she gave me was filled with resentment. I worked as a carpenter, and after Leora's death I threw myself into long hours. Sawdust and hammers drowned out the ache inside me, but when I came home, the silence was louder than any machine. Mira was usually locked in her room, music blasting through the thin walls, making it clear she didn't want me near her. Sometimes I'd stand outside her door with my hand raised, ready to knock, only to lower it again because I didn't know what to say that wouldn't make things worse. The house was full of reminders. In the living room, Leora's favorite blanket still rested over the back of the couch, untouched since the day she died. The shelves were lined with her books, their spines creased from years of reading. The faint smell of her perfume lingered on the pillow in our bedroom, even after months. It was like she was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Mira avoided those things, refusing to look at photos or touch her mother's belongings. She said it hurt too much. For me, leaving them untouched was the only way I felt close to her still. My parents lived 2 towns over. My mother, Marion, would call often, telling me not to lose hope with Mira. She reminded me that teenagers lash out, that grief makes people say cruel things. My father, Thomas, was quieter, but when we did talk, he told me, "Your job isn't to be perfect. Your job is to keep showing up, even when she pushes you away." I clung to his words, though some nights I lay awake wondering if I was failing as both a father and a man. The hardest part was that Mira wouldn't talk about her mother at all. It was as if she believed that silence would make the pain vanish. But grief doesn't work that way. It festers when you bury it. I longed for her to open up, to share a memory, to cry in my arms the way she did when she was little. But she kept her walls high and her heart guarded, and I couldn't find a way through. One Saturday, I decided to clean her room while she was out with friends. It wasn't an invasion of privacy so much as desperation. Clothes were piled on the floor, school books scattered across her desk, half-finished notebooks hidden under the bed. I wanted to bring some order to the chaos, to give her a space that felt calm instead of suffocating. As I sorted through the mess, I wondered if she would ever forgive me for all the things I couldn't control. Everywhere I looked, I saw pieces of Leora's influence. Paintings Mira had done under her mother's guidance, a jewelry box Leora had gifted her for her 12th birthday, the sketch of our family Mira had drawn in elementary school. It hurt to see how tightly Mira clung to the things that reminded her of her mom, while she rejected me, the one person who still remained. It was in that search for order that I stumbled upon the box. It was wedged far, under the bed, almost invisible, and when I pulled it out, a cloud of dust rose around me. The box was sturdy, old, the kind of thing you didn't just toss together. Inside were cassette tapes, each one labeled in Leora's neat handwriting. Dates, titles, little notes. My hands shook as I read them. These weren't just random recordings, they were messages. At that moment, I had no idea what those tapes contained, or why they had been hidden away. All I knew was that they carried her voice, her presence, a piece of her I thought I had lost forever. And holding them in my hands, I felt something stir inside me, a mix of dread and hope. Maybe these tapes would bring Mira and me closer. Maybe they would finally give us the bridge we needed. I was wrong. When I first held the box of cassettes, I didn't know what to do. My hands trembled as I ran my fingers over the neat labels. The handwriting was unmistakably Leora's, the same looping script she used to write birthday cards and grocery lists. I hadn't seen her handwriting in months, and the sight of it sent a wave of grief crashing through me. I sat on Mira's bed with the box in my lap, staring at those tapes as if they held the last pieces of my wife's soul. I pulled out the top cassette. Written in blue ink across the white label were the words, "For Mira, age 16. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just any tape, it was meant for her. The date scrawled at the corner matched the year we were living in. Leora had planned this. She had recorded something for our daughter to hear now, at this exact age. I should have put it back. I should have closed the box, slid it back under the bed, and walked away. But grief has a way of stripping your willpower. I was desperate to hear her voice again, to feel her presence, even if just for a moment. So I found the old cassette player we kept in the closet and pressed play. The hiss of static filled the room. Then came her voice. Warm, soft, unshakably familiar. "If you're listening," she said, "there's something you need to know." My chest tightened as if someone had gripped it with both hands. For a second, I almost believed she was in the room with me. Her words carried weight. They were careful, deliberate, not casual like the old recordings she used to make when she wanted to save ideas for her art projects. This was different. It was a confession, a message. And then she said something that made me freeze where I sat. "This is for you, Mira. Not for your father." I paused the tape immediately. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the player. The words echoed in my head. Not for your father. It wasn't meant for me. It wasn't mine to hear. I stared at the wall, torn between guilt and need. My wife had left something for our daughter, something private, and I had no right to take it. But how could I stop? She was gone. This was the only way I could hear her voice again, the only way Shu could cling to her. I pressed play again. She spoke slowly, as if each word was heavy. Mira, when you reach this age, there will be questions in your heart. There are things I never told you because the time wasn't right. But if you are listening now, then you're ready to know the truth. I pressed stop. My pulse pounded in my ears. The truth? What truth? Leora had never kept secrets from me, or so I thought. We had shared everything. At least I believed we had. What could she possibly have hidden that she couldn't tell me while she was alive? I sat in silence for a long time, staring at the cassette player. Every instinct told me to wait, to give the tape to Mira, and let her hear it the way her mother intended. But then another thought pushed through. Mira hated me. She would never listen if I gave it to her. She would throw it aside just to spite me, and whatever her mother wanted her to hear would be lost forever. If this truth was important enough for Leora to record before she died, then I couldn't let that happen. I took out another tape from the box. This one was labeled for Mira, age 12. I slid it in and pressed play. Again, the hiss, then her voice. My sweet girl, you are growing so fast. There will come a day when you'll wonder why I made certain choices, and I want you to know it was always out of love. Life doesn't always go the way we plan. Sometimes we carry burdens we wish we could set down. She trailed off for a moment, then said something that made the hair on my neck rise. There was someone for your father. Someone I thought would stay, but he didn't. That choice, and everything that came after it, is the reason you are here. One day, you'll understand I slammed the stop button so hard the player clicked loudly. My heart was racing. Someone before your father. She wasn't talking about an old boyfriend. This was bigger. The way she said it, the way her voice cracked on the word choice, told me this wasn't a story about young love. It was a confession about the very foundation of Mira's life. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. What had she hidden from me? What had she hidden from our daughter? And why had she left it for Mira to discover without me? I sat with my head in my hands, the cassette player on the bed beside me. My chest ached with a mix of grief, fear, and betrayal. I had thought I knew my wife better than anyone. I had believed our marriage was built on honesty, that we had faced every hardship together. But this was something she had kept locked away, something she had chosen not to share with me. The conflict inside me grew louder with every passing second. Do I keep listening, knowing I am crossing a line? Or do I hand the tapes to Mira and risk her rejecting them? If the secret inside these recordings was painful, would she even be able to handle it? I tried to imagine Mira's face if she heard her mother speak these words. Would she hate me more for keeping it from her, or for revealing it too soon? My hands trembled as I held the tape. I felt like I was holding a live wire, something that could shock us both beyond repair. I knew one thing for certain. Whatever was on those tapes was powerful enough to change everything I thought I knew about my wife, my daughter, and our family. And once the truth came out, there would be no going back. The night I discovered the truth in those first few tapes, I could not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the cassette player sitting on the nightstand like an accusation. The words kept circling in my mind. Someone before your father. The way Leora said it, with that tremor in her voice, told me it was not just a piece of her past. It was connected to Mira in a way that I could not ignore. I thought about leaving the tapes where I found them, about pretending none of it existed. Maybe, if I ignored them, the secret would stay buried. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mira's face. I saw the anger in her eyes when she looked at me, the distance that stretched between us. What if this secret explained why she felt so disconnected from me? What if it was the key to understanding her, even if it hurt? I got out of bed, went back to the box, and pulled out another tape. This one was marked for Mira, age 15. My hands shook as I slid it into the player. Again, her voice filled the room. Mira, if you are hearing this, it means you are almost grown. By now you have questions about yourself, about who you are. There are things I wanted to tell you in person, but I was afraid. afraid of how it would change the way you see me, and afraid of how it might change the way you see your father." She paused, and I held my breath, waiting for her to continue. "The truth is, the man who raised you is not the man who gave you life. Your biological father was someone I loved once, long before I met Aaron. His name was Jonas. When I found out I was pregnant, Jonas left. He didn't want the responsibility. I chose Aaron because I knew he was strong enough to love a child who wasn't his by blood. He chose you as his daughter before you even took your first breath." I pressed stop and dropped my face into my hands. The words tore through me like a blade. For 16 years I had believed Mira was my daughter in every sense of the word. Now I knew the truth. Blood didn't tie us together. Choice did. My wife had chosen me to raise her, and I had accepted that role without ever knowing the truth. I felt betrayed, but more than that, I felt terrified. What would this do to Mira if she heard it? She already hated me. She already blamed me for everything that went wrong. If she discovered I wasn't her real father, would she walk away completely? Would she look at me and see only a fraud? I sat there in the darkness with the tape still inside the player. My chest felt hollow, my throat tight. Part of me wanted to burn the tapes, to erase them from existence, and protect Mira from a truth that could shatter her. But another part of me, the part that remembered the quiet strength in Leora's voice, knew she had left these messages for a reason. She believed Mira needed to hear them. The next morning, Mira noticed something was different. She came down for breakfast, grabbed a piece of toast without looking at me, and muttered, "Don't go through my stuff again." My heart sank. She knew I had been in her room. "I was just trying to help," I said quietly. She turned and glared at me. "You don't get to help. You don't get to touch her things. You don't understand anything about me." Her words hit harder than she knew. She was right in ways she could not imagine. I wanted to tell her the truth, to say, "I understand more than you think." But I bit my tongue. She wasn't ready, and neither was I. That day at work, I could not focus. Every swing of the hammer, every cut of the saw, was filled with Leora's words. Not your father. Jonas. Choice. When I drove home, my hands gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I was holding back a storm that would eventually break. That night, I went back to the box. There were more tapes, each one waiting like a locked door. I told myself I would stop after one more, but I knew that was a lie. I needed to hear everything. I needed to understand the whole truth before Mira did. The next tape I played was marked, "For Mira, age 16, Part 2. Leora's voice came through, calm but urgent. "If you are listening, Mira, then you deserve to know everything. I wanted to tell you in person, but I didn't have the courage. Jonas is your biological father, but he is not your dad. Your dad is Aaron. He is the man who stayed, the man who raised you, the man who will always love you as his own." Never let blood make you doubt that her words brought tears to my eyes. For a moment I felt relief. Relief that she had defended me, that she had acknowledged my place in Mira's life. But that relief was buried under a mountain of fear. Mira would not see it that way. She was angry, grieving, rebellious. If she heard this now, would she even hear the part about my love? Or would she only hear the betrayal? The turning point came when I realized I could not keep this secret locked inside. I could not unhear what I had heard. Every interaction with Mira from this point forward would be colored by it. Every time she called me Dad, I would wonder if she meant it, or if she would take it back once she knew the truth. That night, I made a decision. I would not destroy the tapes. I would not hand them over blindly either. I would keep listening until I knew everything, until I understood exactly what Leora wanted to tell her. Only then would I decide how to face Mira with the truth. It was the hardest choice I had ever made, because I knew that no matter what I found, our lives would never be the same. The night it all came crashing down, I was in Mira's room again. She had gone out to a friend's house, and I thought I had time. I sat cross-legged on her floor with the cassette player by my side, the last tape in the box gripped tightly in my hands. I had listened to almost all of them by then, piecing together fragments of a story I never thought I would hear. Every tape carried Leora's voice, sometimes steady, sometimes trembling, but always filled with a weight I could feel in my chest. And now there was only one left. The label read, "For Mira, Final." I slid it into the player, pressed play, and waited. After the familiar hiss, her voice filled the air again. "Mira, this is the last time you will hear me. If you are listening now, then I did not get to say this in person. I need you to know that everything I did was to protect you. I kept the truth from you because I wanted you to feel safe, to feel loved. But secrets do not stay hidden forever, and this one is too important." My throat tightened as I leaned closer, straining to hear every word. "You have grown up believing Aaron is your father. In every way that matters, he is. He was there for your first steps, your first words, your first day of school. He held you when you cried. He worked himself to the bone to give you a home, and he loved you more fiercely than anyone ever could. But you deserve to know the truth about where you come from. Jonas is the man who gave you life. He left before you were born, and I raised you with Aaron because he was the one who stayed. Do not let this change the way you see yourself, and do not let it take away the love Aaron has given you." Tears blurred my vision. Hearing her defend me gave me a kind of strength, but it also deepened my fear. Mira would not hear it that way. She would hear betrayal, abandonment, lies. That was when the door swung open. Mira stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, her eyes blazing with fury. "I knew it," she snapped. "I knew you were snooping through my stuff." "What are you doing with that?" I fumbled with the stop button, my heart slamming against my ribs. "Mira, wait, you need to hear this." She marched across the room and tried to grab the cassette player, but I held it tight. "Get out of my room," she shouted. "You never listen, you never respect me. You're pathetic, sitting here listening to Mom's tapes like some creep." Her words hit like a hammer. I wanted to defend myself, to scream that she had no idea what was on those tapes, but instead I forced my voice steady. "It's not about me, it's about you. These tapes were made for you. Your mother wanted you to hear them." Mira froze, her hand hovering above the cassette player. "What are you talking about?" "Please," I said, my voice breaking. "Just sit down and listen. Let her tell you herself." For a long moment she glared at me, her chest heaving with anger. Then, almost against her will, she sank onto the bed. I pressed play again, and Leora's voice returned, filling the tense silence between us. "Mira," her mother said, "you will always be my greatest love. And I need you to know that Aaron is your father, not because of blood, but because of choice. Blood does not raise a child. Blood does not stay up through the night when you are sick, or work extra hours to buy you school supplies, or hold you when your heart is broken. Aaron did those things. He is your father because he chose you, because he never walked away." Mira's face crumpled as the words sank in. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She stared at the cassette player as if she were staring into another world. Then came the final blow. "Jonas gave you life," Leora continued, "but he gave you nothing else. He did not want you, Mira. That was his choice, not yours. Never let his absence make you feel less. Never doubt who you are, and never doubt that Aaron is your true father." The tape clicked to an end, leaving only the hum of silence. Mira's eyes filled with tears. She turned on me, her voice raw. "You knew, didn't you? You knew, and you kept it from me." I shook my head quickly. "No, I swear, I didn't know until I listened to these tapes. Your mother never told me. I found them the same way you would have, by accident. And when I heard her words, I couldn't stop. I had to know. I had to understand." She buried her face in her hands. "So, everything I believed was a lie. "You're not even my dad." I moved closer, my hands shaking. "Look at me. I may not be the man who gave you life, but I am the man who raised you. I am the one who stayed. Every scraped knee, every school project, every birthday, every Christmas, I was there. That is what being a father means." Her eyes met mine, red with tears. Then why didn't she tell me? Why didn't she tell us? I swallowed hard, my own tears burning. Because she was afraid. She thought she was protecting you. She thought she was protecting us. But she wanted you to know the truth when you were old enough to understand. Mira turned away, her shoulders trembling. For the first time in years, I saw not just her anger, but her pain. And I realized this was the moment everything would change. Either we would shatter completely, or we would start to rebuild from the ruins of this truth. When the tape ended, Mira sat frozen, her shoulders hunched forward, her hands pressed against her face. The silence in the room felt heavier than any sound. I did not move at first. I was terrified that if I reached for her, she would pull away and hate me more than she already did, but I could not sit still while she carried that kind of pain alone. Slowly, I reached out and rested my hand on her arm. She flinched, but did not pull away. That small detail gave me the courage to speak. "Mira," I said softly, "you are my daughter. That has never changed. Nothing your mother revealed changes what we have lived together." She looked up at me, her eyes swollen from crying. "You should have told me as soon as you found out." "I wanted to," I admitted, "but I was scared. Scared you would hate me for not being the one who gave you life. Scared I would lose you completely. I thought I needed to understand everything before I could face you with it. I was wrong." Her lips trembled as she whispered, "I don't even know who I am anymore. All this time, I thought I was yours. You are mine," I said firmly. "Not because of blood, but because I chose you every day. When your mother told me she was pregnant, I didn't hesitate. I knew I wanted to be your father, and I have never once regretted that choice." Tears spilled down her cheeks, and for the first time in months she let me pull her into my arms. She resisted at first, stiff in my embrace, but then she collapsed against me, her body shaking with sobs. I held her tightly, feeling the weight of years of grief and anger pouring out of her. That night we sat together for hours, talking about Leora, about the tapes, about the truth she had hidden. Mira asked questions I did not have answers to. Where was Jonas now? Why had he abandoned them? Did he ever think of her? All I could do was tell her what I knew, that Jonas had walked away, and that her mother had chosen to protect her from that pain by giving her a father who would never abandon her. In the weeks that followed, things did not magically heal. Mira still struggled with anger. She slammed doors, she snapped at me, she pulled away when her emotions became too heavy. But something had changed. When she looked at me now, I no longer saw only hatred. I saw confusion, sorrow, and, buried deep beneath it all, the faintest trace of trust. One evening, as we washed dishes together, she broke the silence. "Dad," she said, her voice hesitant, as if the word itself was fragile. "Do you think Mom was right? Do you think blood doesn't matter?" I dried my hands and turned to her. "I know it doesn't matter. What matters is who shows up, who stays, who loves without conditions. That is what makes a family. That is what makes a father." She nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. And though she did not say more, I knew something had shifted inside her. Over time, we made a quiet ritual of listening to the tapes together. Instead of me sneaking into her room alone, we sat side by side, pressing play, letting Leora's voice fill the space between us. Sometimes Mira cried. Sometimes she laughed when her mother's humor slipped through. Sometimes she sat in silence, gripping my hand as if to remind herself I was still there. The tapes did not destroy us the way I feared. They forced us to confront the truth, and in doing so, they gave us a chance to rebuild. It was not easy, and it never would be, but for the first time since Leora's death, I felt hope. Hope that Mira and I could find our way back to each other, not as perfect father and daughter, but as two people bound by love, by choice, and by the memory of the woman who had given us both strength. Looking back now, I realize that secrets have power, but so does truth. Leora kept her secret out of love, but it was the truth that finally opened a door between Mira and me. It reminded us that family is not about bloodlines or biology. It is about loyalty, sacrifice, and the choice to stay when it would be easier to walk away. If you are listening to this story, I hope you take that lesson with you. Love is not always neat or simple. Sometimes it is messy and painful, but it is also the thing that carries us through the darkest nights. Thank you for being here with me, for walking through this journey of loss, discovery, and healing. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the power of love and the meaning of family, I invite you to share it with others. Leave a comment with your thoughts because I would love to hear your stories too. And if you want more powerful stories like this one, subscribe to the channel and join me again. Your support means more than I can say.